Australian Bitcoin podcast, presented by HardBlock, Australia's first Bitcoin-only exchange.
Hi, hello everybody, and welcome to the Australian Bitcoin podcast. How are you, Alex?
Yeah, good. I better just take a long, slow sip.
Of coffee. It's
It's
a bit
actually-
boring, isn't it?
It's actually bone broth. No, it's like the old "I told you so" sip. Right, all the Bitcoiners drinking it in at the moment.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
You're enjoying it.
Mm.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's yeah. You don't know,
Some
like
smiles.
you have to be like really. So obviously the price is pumping. In case somebody's not listening to it, it's right now
Yeah.
in US dollars. So Trump just won the election last week, and the price is pumping, and it's 88,000 US dollars in the last like 4 or 5 days.
We just claimed 135,000 Australian for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Minutes ago. So
Yeah.
kind of fun.
But you know, like you want to be kind of humble because sometimes, like you have all these friends who, and I'm sure you have it also, and you've been telling them about Bitcoin over time, and they always dismiss it, and it's and it's like, okay, well, you see what's the way it's going, and it's kind of like we told you so, and a lot of people didn't listen, but you have to stay humble. You don't want to rub it in people's face, do you?
Yeah, well, you want to bring them on board, like they're your friends and family.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you just want to take whatever approach you think's going to get them on the train at the earliest stop.
Yeah, but yeah, it's exciting. So yeah, we're at so I'll go through the price. So right now we're on 88,000 US dollars. So in the last week, it went up by 30%. In this is US dollars, 30% in the last week. 42% in the last month, year to date 110%, 5 years 906%. So we were at an all-time high. The mood's very bullish. We're like $88,000. It's rising pretty fast. I wouldn't be surprised by the time this podcast comes up, it's going to be at 100,000. Like I think it's going for that 100,000 US dollar mark. I think it might get there soon. But yeah, that's what's your take? Excited?
Oh, yeah, well, obviously, price movement's always excited. I think one thing I'm really excited to see is the impact on Bush Bash. We got Bush Bash at the end of this month, and I want to see a really big turnout there. I think we'll see it out at Parks. We just had the Cheat Code conference in Sydney as well, and there were that was something that really stood out to me. Like my big takeaway from the Cheat Code conference, which was really good, was just how many Bitcoiners there are in Australia that came to Sydney for this conference that know nothing about sort of local Bitcoin community. They don't know about meetups. They don't know about the Bush Bash. And just if we activate those people, and a lot of people will shield the Bush Bash. And if you don't know about the Bush Bash or you're thinking about coming, definitely come along to the Bush Bash at the end of this month. It's just we could double or triple the size of our community overnight, and that would just be phenomenal for building Bitcoin in Australia.
I'm gonna be there. I think you're gonna be there also. So the Bush Bash, for those who don't know, there's a website you can go to look up like Bitcoin Bush Bash, and it should come up on Google.
So bitcoinbushbash.info.
Bitcoinbushbash.info, and so for those who don't know, it's like these regional mini conferences, meetups. They're very casual, they're free. You just have to get there. They're held in regional places in Australia, and so this one is in Parks. Parks is the city where the dish is, so it's the famous city. It's
Contributed
nice
Australia's
place.
contribution to the moon landing.
Yeah, that's
mission.
right. Yeah, so like it's going to be a casual. It's going to be two days of kind of talks, events, and there'll be like we'll go to lunch and hang out, talk about Bitcoin. So Parks, it's a good location. It's not like I'm in Adelaide, so it's not too far from Adelaide, 12 hours from Adelaide, but it's also pretty close to Sydney. It's drivable distance from Melbourne also. You can probably drive it from Brisbane also. It's kind of like a somewhat central location. Anybody can get there, and it's just going to be like you can meet Bitcoiners, very knowledgeable people, and there'll be some presentations, and it'd be a lot of fun. And it's like, I've never been to parks, but people tell me there's a lot of interesting things to see there. I'm sure we'll do some small excursions to see the dish and other places. So that's what that is. So
and most importantly, it's free. You don't need a ticket. You show up.
You just have to show up. You just have to book your accommodation yourself, and whatever, and you just show up.
I can even preview some of the speaking topics, seeing as I'm putting together the speaker list this time. So we got freedom through responsibility, talking about establishing a community in a sort of like regional area. We've got Wiz talking about silent payments, which is a new upcoming improvement to Bitcoin addresses. We've got Sunny, he's going to be talking about communities again. We've got Phil, going to be talking about Bitcoin options, as in like options trading. We're going to have a trivia quiz system. We've got someone presenting on UTXO management, tipping Bitcoin, how to tip Bitcoin, and like I guess like if you visit a restaurant or a cafe, like how to like promote Bitcoin, leave a little tip. We've got someone talking about Bitcoin and AI. Got Bitcoin and alchemy, and then we've got a handful of other speakers that haven't confirmed their topics just yet, and then we've got a couple of mystery guests as well. So that could be quite exciting. So I'd definitely make it to Parks if you can. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it should be fun. But anyway, like since like we have to talk about, so like obviously there's the price and it's been pumping, and obviously the big reason is because Trump won.
The election,
I mean, Trump and the Republicans have put in a pretty strong pro-Bitcoin platform for Bitcoin. So they were seen as the pro-Bitcoin candidates. The Democrats were much more hostile to Bitcoin during the previous 4 years, and even now they were more hostile. So that's why the Bitcoin price rose so much. So, I mean, what do you think, Alex?
I think potentially we might have seen a bit of a run either way, because I think markets just like certainty, like they don't like uncertainty. So there is that aspect. But yeah, you're right. Trump has swept the president, the presidential election. The Republicans have swept the House and the Senate. So they've got a clean win. Something that keeps getting echoed on Twitter at the moment is the fact that they've won the popular vote as well. So it's seen as being like establishing a lot of legitimacy for wide sweeping changes, and the promises are coming pretty hard and fast at the moment. Like the day one, like we will statements. I just saw today that they're talking about abolishing the Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education. I know we've got, it sounds like RFK Jr. is coming in with some pretty radical reforms for the FDA and the health side of things. And and then on the Bitcoin front, obviously, one of the biggest donors for Trump's campaign was the crypto lobby, which includes some of the biggest public Bitcoin miners in the country, and Bitcoin Magazine. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Bitcoin Magazine a lot of the time, but I think it's undeniable that in this instance they've dramatically raised the profile of Bitcoin, and they've really made that an election issue, to the extent that now there's like a widespread talk of the fact that they may make and establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve in the first sort of year of office.
Yeah, I mean, so you've kind of a platform. The reason people think Republicans are more pro-Bitcoin, and Trump himself, like, he doesn't seem to have a huge knowledge of Bitcoin, but it's people around him. Like, there's a lot of young people like J.D. Vance who confirmed that he actually owns. He might have started.
Yeah, the Avengers. It's the Avenger team. Yeah. The Avengers all hold Bitcoin, right? Like, J.D. Vance has been holding Bitcoin. Vivek's been holding Bitcoin. Elon holds Bitcoin. And RFK holds Bitcoin.
Also, RFK also is pro Bitcoin. So those people around him. But like when Trump talks about it himself, he doesn't seem hugely knowledgeable. But so the policy platform is okay. So first thing, Donald Trump has promised to release Ross Ulbricht, which is great. For those who don't know, like Ross Ulbricht was, even if he was meant to go to jail, like giving him a life sentence is way too much. He might Silk Road, a website. People maybe sold drugs on his website, but even over that, he made the website. He just made a free market trading platform. And like to give him a life sentence for that is crazy. So Trump has promised to release him, so to like pardon him. So that's that's
I don't know if he's
unfortunate by
going to. I
itself.
don't know if he's talking about pardon. I think he's going to commute his sentence. So I don't know if he's going to pardon him. It's like a similar thing, but like essentially he's not like pardon. I think is like it's like canceling the verdict. I think maybe I'm not a legal expert, but
I'm not a legal expert, but basically,
essentially
like,
he'd be out of jail. He'd be free.
yeah, well, that's the most important thing. He'd be out of jail. Like, there's a potential where we could go to a Bitcoin conference and we can meet Ross Ulbricht and shake his hand and he'll be free, which is great. I mean, like he was sentenced, I think he was in his late 20s. Like he was in the prime of his life.
Yeah.
To give him a life sentence or something, it's tragic. But a lot of tragedy in the world. But that's one certainly it's a tragedy for him, and it would be great that he will be released.
Yeah.
So that's one. Okay. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, he's one of Bitcoin's early pioneers and heroes. So we need him. Back.
And so the other kind of platforms is Trump has said he's going to support Bitcoin mining industry in the United States. He promised to establish a national Bitcoin reserve. He promised opposition to central bank digital currencies and simplify tax regulations for digital assets. So, I mean, what do you think of like his promises? And do you think are we gonna? Because at the end of the day, as politicians, it's easy to promise things during the election. Is it gonna live up to the promise?
Well, I think the general sentiment is that Trump is like incredibly loyal to the people that support him. So I think the Bitcoin miners who contributed a huge amount towards his campaign, I think they will certainly receive significant protection and reward for that. So I think Bitcoin mining. I would expect the Bitcoin mining front to be extremely bullish in terms of I guess the regulatory side for Bitcoin mining. The strategic Bitcoin reserve, I'm not as sure about. I suspect that is still something that's sort of up in the air. Given how radical the platform they're coming in on is, I think there's actual potential there, and there does seem to be a lot of momentum that's forming around it now, especially in the week post the election, around this concept of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And one of the things that I suspect it might be used as is a bit of leverage with the Fed. So I know that the Trump sort of campaign, they want to have more leverage with the Fed. They basically want a say in interest rate policies, and the Federal Reserve is trying to, I guess, lock them out of that at the moment. So I think it's potentially the sort of thing that will be used as leverage to give them more say on interest rates. And then the other thing is, I think we'll probably see it in name, in the sense that they'll probably make the claim that even if they just make a rule saying we're not going to sell, or they make a policy of not selling the existing seized and confiscated Bitcoin, they'll probably claim that's a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So I think it's quite likely we'll see a strategic Bitcoin reserve in name, but in terms of like effect, will the US government be like bulk buying Bitcoin? I think that's still pretty up in the air.
Yeah, to be honest, like again, I think it's generally the Trump and Republicans were more pro Bitcoin, so it's good for Bitcoin that they won. But some of those platforms, to be honest, they read to me, they're very kind of like just headline grabbing to get votes. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of in terms of actual practical stuff, like what Bitcoin, you just like don't get in the way and like don't make really bad regulations. Like a lot of it is just kind of headline grabbing. But yeah, I think it's good. Even if it doesn't go, even if all those things aren't completely followed through, even if we just have, just more friendly administration. You know, like in the Democrats, especially some people like Warren were really kind of trying to out to get Bitcoin. So hopefully they won't
Yep.
be out to get
Yep.
Bitcoin. You know, it's funny because with like, you know, supporting the Bitcoin mining industry, like probably Trump, again, he doesn't have a huge knowledge of Bitcoin, but he just feels, oh, Bitcoin mining, so we're gonna mine
Yeah,
Bitcoin here. And
he's
like, oh
walked
yeah,
into it
yeah,
by
you
an
need to mine it in
analogy.
Australia.
Everyone he knows, is pushing it, and all the analogies work in with his platform. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
think
the only
you're
thing is
100%
like,
right.
I have to say it is kind of a bit like there is a bit of one contradiction, and he's also very like pro US dollar, um,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, also during the campaign was one at one point he made a comment, and this wasn't like in relation to Bitcoin, but he just made a comment about he said that um, countries that will refuse to use the US dollar, that he will sanction countries who refuse to use US dollar. Um, so, like, what about, for example, like if El Salvador wants to get off the
Well,
US dollar and use
uh,
Bitcoin, like, you know, I'm saying, I mean,
but I think they're already a dollarized economy, so and I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
see them
that's true.
doing that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I th-
that's true.
yeah.
But I guess what I'm saying is like, I wonder if that's kind of, he's like very strong trying to push the US dollar is slightly at odds with Bitcoin, because at the end of the day, like, the point of Bitcoin is to kind of replace the US dollar. You know, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
it's like,
I mean, the other thing as well was the shitcoin token that they launched as well, their Liberty
yeah,
Reserve or whatever it was.
yeah,
There's that as well, and that's, I think, from what I understand, that's being pushed by what was like mostly being done by his son Barron Trump,
okay,
who's like 18 or something.
yeah, it's probably a
So we'll
shitcoin,
see
and
how that
it's not
goes.
what
Yeah, it was
origins are.
shitcoin stuff. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly.
yeah, so I just think that's like a bit of contradictory. So I hope like that's kind of like one issue of possible concern, like how
Mm.
we voice viewpoints. I do think the answer, like, and my honest answer is the best thing for America is to kind of like embrace change. And you know, yes, like maybe Bitcoin will cannibalize the US dollar, but it's better for America to lead that kind of and own that process than for
Oh, of course. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Um,
yeah.
you know, it's kind of like, I think that often at startups, like they talk about like, you know, like I think Google talk about like, it's, you know, about disruption, like, you know, like when they release new products that can disrupt the existing business, and their policy is like, well, let's do that because it's better that we disrupt
Disrupt
our
themselves.
own
Yeah,
business than somebody else disrupting the business. So it's like,
yeah.
yeah, I think Bitcoin is kind of in some ways destined to take over the US dollar and fiat currencies, but it's better that that kind of change is led from United States than, you know, other countries leading that and they kind of disrupting the US dollar from outside of America. I hope that makes sense, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, so I think that's why like it is a good place, but it does kind of require some forward thinking, because for a lot of people, their initial instinct might be like, okay, US dollar, it's ours, and we need to preserve it, and we need to protect it against, and we need to fight Bitcoin to preserve the US dollar. And it's kind of like a short-term thinking. I think it's wrong, but there's some kind of some people might have that instinct.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know exactly how it's going to go, but it does seem extremely bullish with all the radical reforms that I'm
Yeah,
talking about. It does seem like it'll fit in with that.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
How do you think it's going to affect Australia? That's something that I think we're already starting to see, like the little tremors in Australian politics, of a Trump presidency, and how that might affect Bitcoin in Australia as well. I think one thing that stands out to me already is that earlier this week, the Trump campaign basically said that they're not going to take on Nikki Haley or Mike Pompeo as advisors or in any significant positions in the administration. and that's quite a lot of egg in the face for the Australian political establishment, who had basically been pushing the fact that they'd been, talking and meeting with Mike Pompeo, who was the former, I think, US, was he like I can't remember exactly his position. It was in the national security right now.
Yeah,
Was he like national security advisor
Secretary
or
of State or something? I'm not sure.
yeah, something like that. Yeah. United States Secretary of State, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, and like Kevin Rudd, like heavily insulted him in his Australian.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same. The ambassador, and then Trump's already been saying like, basically saying like comments on him like, no, I don't really know about him, but I like him. Something similar to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like again, because look, we have to be honest, and I mean, Australia's a small country. In Australia, advent of that just kind of follows what United States does.
We're almost just a client state of the US. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, it's good. Like if United States is going to have a more pro-Bitcoin policy, it's going to follow in other countries like Australia. And
sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say, and even things like that kind of misinformation bill or whatever.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So obviously, Elon's probably the biggest factor in the Trump re-election in terms of donors and outside support coming in. And let's think about what's the Australian government's relationship been like with Elon for the last year. It's been extremely combative, and now Elon's walked straight into the greatest hall of power that there is, and it's shit rolls downhill, I would say. And I think the Karen's going to get a bit of a stand down for sure. The misinformation and censorship bill, I've already seen Elon posting stuff about it. He's retweeting and commenting on Twitter, so you can bet that anything that's in, I would say, Elon's business interests, or like part of his pet topics, like obviously freedom of speech and anti-censorship and anti-wokeism, they're going to really grind the Australian government on. They'll be putting the hard word on them for things like AUKUS, which is our deal with the US for, it's like one of our big defense projects to do with the nuclear submarines. So they want to do a whole bunch of intelligence sharing and technology sharing through, it's maybe not intelligence, just technology sharing on nuclear tech via AUKUS. And that's exactly the sort of thing that a Donald Trump administration would just threaten to unilaterally withdraw from unless Australia stops trying to censor people. So I think we'll see big negotiation plays like that, and it'll be very interesting. I think the Australian government will fall into line quickly.
It makes it very awkward for Australia to push in the misinformation when it makes it awkward for Australia. So it kind of like it takes the wind out of the sails on that stuff. So hopefully it will fail now in Australia.
Yep.
Anyway, maybe moving on so we can talk about some other issues, but maybe you can just you were at the Cheat Code conference that was in Sydney 2 or few weeks ago. I don't know, maybe you could give a summary. Like, what did you know, were there any interesting talks or like anything interesting talks or events that stood out for you from there?
Okay. So the conference was a 1-day conference. It was on the Friday. I actually helped with the setup and things. So I was out there on the Thursday packing show bags and helping set up the area. And then on the Friday, it was the conference day. It was kind of like a whole bunch of panels. It was quite interesting. My memory's not the best, so I don't know if I remember any of the high points from any of the actual presentations. Like I said before, though, the thing that did really stand out to me was just how many people it was quite big. It was quite big. I'd say there was about 300 people there, so it was like a small town hall. It was the Paddington Town Hall, so it was pretty packed. It was just like a single room with stage up the front, and it's pretty packed. And the thing that stood out to me the most was just how many people were there that were not already tightly engaged with the local Bitcoin community events like meetups and Bush Bash, and hadn't heard about Bitcoin Alive and things like that. So just a real opportunity to activate the community here in Australia and unite together to push Bitcoin.
Okay. Something else I want to discuss with you is, have you heard of it was like, this was a few weeks ago, but there was the controversy with Michael Saylor, how he criticized like the crypto anarchists.
Oh yeah.
Have you heard of that? So basically, there was an interview, and he was asked, is it going to be a problem if in the future most Bitcoin is held in custodial services like ETFs and such? And he responded, he gave a lengthy answer. He talked about many things, but he responded, well, it's not going to be a problem. It's actually a good thing. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he said it's a good thing because these entities are regulated. So there will be less chance for the government to seize people's Bitcoin because they will be held in regulated entities. And the crypto anarchists are a bit paranoid, and they're just trying to be spreading fear to sell their hardware wallets, and nothing to worry about, and it's a good thing. And afterwards, like, he did kind of walk boys comments.
Yeah, on Twitter, he walked him back on Twitter quite a bit. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, do you have any thoughts on that controversy?
I mean, I think there is an element of what he says, which is true, which is that the approach we take does matter, and the way that you engage with people can either turn them away or get them on board the Bitcoin train earlier. But yeah, I think it's pretty undeniable that self-custody is far superior than custodial, like regulated custodians, especially in terms of keeping Bitcoin safe from seizure. So yeah, I don't know. Is it unlikely? I don't think so. I think there's real potential that you could see regulated custodians have Bitcoin seized. But I don't know if I'd say it's likely. I think the more that Bitcoin wins, the less likely it becomes, and Bitcoin's just a runaway train.
Yeah. I mean, I think both things are needed, like custodial and self-custodial Bitcoin. And obviously criticizes, he kind of makes the argument, people were trying to be fearful to sell their hardware wallets. Maybe that's a bit slightly true, but on the other hand, he's also like, he's a very kind of big regulated company holding, Bitcoin in custody, and essentially he's kind of like a custodial service himself, so he really needs to be kind of on board and pro-regulation. He has to be seen
exactly
very pro-Bitcoin himself.
That's the thing. If you when you are one of these big custodians, you're at risk, so you don't want to do anything that would amplify your risk, like speaking out too much.
Anyway, I know that's all the topics I have for today. Is there any other topics you had?
No. I was just, I guess, just thinking about the election mostly. Like, yeah.
Okay.
So no.
Okay. Should we wrap it up for today?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay,
I think that was
cool.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay, then. Thanks everybody, and I hope you enjoyed the show. And give us any feedback if you liked it, and hopefully we'll see you at a future Bitcoin event, or you can listen into the next episode.
All right. Catch you later.
Australian Bitcoin Podcast, presented by HardBlock, Australia's first Bitcoin-only exchange.